Welcome back to the LEC, where we're about to witness Fnatic versus SK, two teams who are fighting out in the middle of the jungle that is our standings right now. And we've been discussing it really for, it feels like, quite a while now. Fnatic have never missed a playoffs in LEC history, but this season, they're really struggling, Vedius.
Yeah, so it's funny because we've said this a few times about Fnatic, actually, where it's come close to the playoffs and we were just like, they've never missed the playoffs. And you can even see last year, finishing in 5th place. This team does have a bit of a history of always like dancing on the edge, but typically you see first, second, third, first, second, like that is typically where you expect Fnatic to be. And I think the craziest thing is that with this roster specifically, no one expected them to be anywhere near the bottom of the standings. This is a roster that should be consistently fighting for the top, somewhere in that top 3 range. So to see them struggling like they are really is a big surprise.
And that kind of just like begs the question, what's going wrong here then, right? Because all of a sudden you have like a team that's filled with star spec roster even coming into it. They were the second super team in the beginning that we had. But it's difficult to really pinpoint what the mistake is because it feels like there's multiple things. But if there's one thing I still feel like we see in multiple of their games is that they're kind of incohesive in the way that they are playing together. Like, we don't see the same kind of good map movements that we see from the top teams where we talk about a good support, mid and jungle moving around together. They kind of seem disjointed. Maybe Hylissang's making a play for bot. Razork wants to play topside, but it's not working out. There's just so many multiple factors that's not been going well for them lately.
And I mean, I think Laure gave a great example on Euphoria, where he talked about how at the start of the split, he felt like Upset wasn't moving enough for Herald, and now he feels like Upset's moving too much for Herald. And it feels like that every small thing that Fnatic seem to try and fix to make their teamwork stronger, it then leaves another weakness open. And it feels like that, you know, the analogy of trying to fill a sinking ship, you know, every time you plug one hole, another one pops open. It feels like every week we're identifying something slightly different that we kind of have an issue with when watching Fnatic play.
One of the consistent issues potentially is the jungle at the moment. What's happening with Razork? He's an extremely experienced player. He might not be as storied as his teammates, but he should be getting the job done. He's extremely good at it normally.
Yeah. But historically as well with Razork, like you think back to the Misfit states as well when he was playing there, he was playing with Hirid, okay? And Hirid was a top laner that demanded a lot of resources, thrived and carried top laners. So in his genes as a player, he just likes playing for that top side. And Fnatic have tried this a little bit, but it still feels like that is not moving down towards the bot side afterwards.
And I feel like that when they did do that, they were very successful. Like, you're seeing the heat map on your screen right now, when they were getting a lot of wins and a lot of conversation was around, should Wunder be considered the best player in the LEC? It was when Razork was investing so much of his time and attention towards the top side of the map. But we're seeing more of a bot side focus meta starting to develop. We're seeing dragons raising in priority, and this is then brings into the question, can Fnatic actually shift this approach to playing around the bot side of the map?
And that's not something they've really been doing, particularly this split so far.
I mean, I definitely feel like they tried to, but it was never in the same regard, like as we think back to in playoffs where it was just like, all right, find skirmishes all the time. They're definitely not as proactive as they used to be, not only just from a bot lane standpoint, but from entire map standpoint, I'd say in that regard. I feel like with the changes coming through, it's not necessarily that, oh, is this going to be the thing that's going to make all the teams play towards the bot side? I just think it's a good idea if Fnatic decides to say, you know what, let's just try this. We know bot lane functions even better now if we can get the Drakes through. Let's just keep Upset and Hylissang as this spear. So you don't need to kind of focus with all of the teammates on the rest of the map. You can just lead all of it down towards the bot side instead.
So do you think that 12.14 is actually going to benefit the bot lane? Are we going to see even more from Upset?
Well, this is really one of the big questions for me, because Upset is a player that I think is still playing very well. He and Hylissang, and you can talk to other bot lanes and how they credit them as being a very strong duo that you can't afford to underestimate. But we haven't really been seeing him prioritize things like the Kalista. We haven't really seen, we saw one Draven game I think we've seen from him. Like, and it's funny because even when Reckless was on the team, Fnatic used to permaban Kalista. So the fact that this issue seems to continue to plague them regardless of the AD carry, like, it's really interesting because what we got on your screen here is comparing their spring versus summer, and you can see how much more active and how many more resources the bot side of the map typically get. And I think that this is a style that Fnatic should put more trust in, especially when you have a bot lane like Upset and Hylissang, because this is a duo that is known for their aggression. They would consistently find 2v2 kills. In the era of when Hans Sama was in the league, it was Upset, and then we had all these bot lanes that were constantly killing each other. It was Upset and Hilly that were at the top when it came to fighting for these 2v2 kills. So I want to see that more. I think the Fnatic can take advantage of the changes to the meta, and I'm keeping my eyes on that Pantheon pick because I think it's something that would really complement both Razork and Humanoid in their typical approach to attack side lanes and being aggressive early.
It's interesting they're playing against SK as we have got this new patch for the first time this week, at least seeing our players play on it, because SK seems to be a team that feels confident in their draft, feels confident in playing anything, even if maybe they don't always choose the right thing.
I feel like they're confident when they're ahead of the meta. If you think back to when SK found their 2 victories, it was when they played Poppy, and they were the only team that week to play Poppy. Then the rest of them kind of started finding it out. Then you go back to last week where they played against, you know, Misfits, and all of a sudden that drafting wasn't really there with the way the game played out. You can see now this is an Alistar. You also see a Poppy. Really doesn't go hand in hand usually when you're watching that out. And while Alistar is good into Sivir, it's that broad picture. So I think for sure SK, they were great when they had the read. Then when everyone knew the read, it kind of just fell back into the normality of what we usually saw from them.
Alistair did get a buff this patch. His Q's been buffed.
Oh, don't even mention it, okay? You get Leona, 4-second cooldown on E and Q. You get Alistar now on max round, that's 10 seconds instead. Listen, that guy needs more before he really comes into fruition. He's great into Sivir, but it's going to take a while before I really believe that he's going to be the standard of the supports.
And I think just to further echo Guldborg's point, you can see on your screen the week 5 stats versus week 6. And first blood percentage, first herald percentage,
I haven't seen those.
goal difference at 14, the kill deaths at 14. Look at how dramatically different the early games are from week to week. And in week 5 was when SK were being credited for their hyper-aggressive early game skirmishing comps. They had high priority on champions that many of the other teams were prioritizing. Things like Sylas was a big pick for them. But then immediately the week after, everyone was like, that's a good idea, SK. We're going to yoink that. And then all of a sudden, I think that some of the individual differences really caught up to them and they couldn't quite compete. So the big question now for SK is, on a new patch, once again, so far today, I feel like we haven't really seen anything different. Teams seem to be sticking to what they know. This could be a big opportunity for SK to get ahead of the meta once again and catch Fnatic off guard.
The good bros are standing by. You've got one sentence, make it a good one.
I feel like Treatz and Jezu, they just need to send it. It worked for them in the beginning. You're playing bot lane now. I want to see them answer the aggression that we used to see from Upset and Hylissang.
And I want to see Treatz play a cow. That is enough from us here on the Analysts desk. It is time for those good boys to take over.
Thank you so much, Frankie. I've not heard that one before, actually.
Say, like, you've heard of the Brothers Grimm, now get good.
For the Brothers Good?
Good?
Yeah, not great yet. We've got to like level up a little before we get there. We've got a bit more practice to get into.
Maybe if we level up enough, we'll get up to the levels of stakes in this game as well. See, that's how we say
Well done, that was not bad.
Because, of course, this is a match between teams which are just below that bracket of the teams which are kind of on that cusp of playoffs. These teams are not safe at all. They've got to start picking up wins.
Absolutely, they have. And some really important discussions there as we head into champion select. I was going to call it championship, but I was like, not quite there yet. A little way to go.
A little way off.
But, you know, questions about Fnatic's bot lane, how they play around it. Some questions from the desk. On the other side, SK, that eye-watering discrepancy between week 6 and and the week before in terms of how they were playing in the games.
Let's see what we get ourselves in this one, because if we're dealing with teams which are dealing with inconsistencies, you just gotta hope you can roll high, particularly in a game like this. SK, if they lose this one, you gotta feel like they are on the absolute ropes. They can't really afford more losses at this point. Already gotta make up so many games on that pack if they were to make it to playoffs. And Fnatic standing in their way did break their loss streak. They are still far from the complete product.
A reminder that loss streak was broken against BDS, who are really struggling in this split. And now the question remains, can they do it against SK, who were on an uptick? Of course, then, as the desk was saying, the patch kind of got a bit more figured out by everyone else, and SK lost a little bit the advantage they seem to have. Fnatic, blue side banning Kalista. There it is again.
Yeah, they've really not had a tendency to pick this one. Upset's not really played it much in his career. And of course, actually, SK are, I would say, the best overall Kalista team in Europe. I think that player like Comp is really good at Kalista on an individual level. But SK have been really good at playing around these kind of kill lane bot lanes and throwing resources at them. They kind of got a week's head start, the other EU teams, to deal with that. And it feels like that was part of a lot of their success when they were fighting it.
Well,
there is a lovely sign of the... Can I just say, there are some people in the crowd today who have been cheering for absolutely everyone in every game. I salute you. That is a wonderful attitude to come into. And the signs that they bring with them have been really cool too.
Yeah.
Azir first lock-in.
Was a little unexpected. And some context there for the Anivia Hover. There is a wonderful sign in crowd that says pick Anivia. So Gen X, give you a bit of a shout out there. The response to the Azir, not a pick I was expecting to see up first, is the Wukong Sivir, though.
Okay, so you've got teamfight on both sides. Bit of a Laure matchup here. Azir versus his descendant in Sivir. But now with Humanoid playing something a bit more control major, he's played 2 games of the Azir this split, has played a lot of the Corki too, and just waited to come into relevancy. The thing is, Humanoid in summer compared to spring has struggled to be as really rock solid, to just not be given huge amounts of resources, but still be crazy in those late game team fights, especially with the way that Fnatic are putting resources more towards top side at this point, towards that top lane.
If they lock this in, I will be even more excited for the person in the crowd with that sign, but it's looking more and more like potential Ornn option here, especially with the Trundle.
Not quite the Albus Nox Luna Poppy Innovator bot lane. That was the
hilarious.
Season 6 special. Real shout out to that one. But this is going to be huge, huge top side team fight from Fnatic, but you do have to deal with that Sivir. Now, this is
crowd's not pleased.
Okay.
Oh.
I mean, this is
the
risky.
villains this game.
A little bit, but you know, SK RAT, which I feel like have thrived when they've had kill lane bot lanes, when they've been able to really explode Jezu into the lead through a couple of well-timed 2v2s, but giving quite a weak laning 2v2 in Sivir Yuumi over to Jezu and Treatz. I'm a little worried for it, because actually even in isolation, Upset and Hilly have still been doing fine in a laning phase. It's just how the team connects with them, which has been the problem. But in this game, if Upset and Hilly win that 2v2 and shut the Sivir Yuumi out the game, I'm worried for SK.
That is exactly what I was thinking as well. And of course, you know, shout out to the Analysts as well, put up that fantastic jungle heat map where Razork loves to play towards top sides. That might be a read from SK saying, look, you really don't play around the bot lane particularly well, and saying we can get away with this. Even if historically, of course, Upset and Hylissang have been one of the more dominant kill-focused bot lanes. Honestly, this summer, it's not really been as much the case as it's kind of been highlighted.
Okay, so this is 2 of the supports which can fight level 1, level 2 removed from Hylissang's available picks, though. The Rakan and the Renata locked away. That, again, buys a bit more safety for the Sivir Yuumi, and you can see the second half of the draft is very much catered towards securing that lane. Now, SK have to find themselves some solo laners to add into the equation. Gnar still available. It's one which has been played a fair amount across the league. But of course, with those nerfs, we've seen Gnar be less impactful.
Oh.
Instead, we're going to see the Akali. And of course, Sertuss solo killed Caps on this.
He did.
G2 have been a little bit down on the luck themselves in their own recent run of form, but that does not diminish what Sertuss did on that champion. It can potentially be flexed up into that top lane too if they really feel like it into the Ornn. It's not something we see so much anymore, but that is a bot lane.
All right. Prepare yourselves for the Juggermore, everyone. KogMaw Lulu on the rift for Upset Hylissang.
I was wondering if Fnatic were going towards just kill lane, bot lane, punish the Sivir Yuumi. Instead they say, right, you want to do team fight damage? We will match you in team fight damage. The one problem for me now is there isn't a great angle for Razork to really impact anywhere. There is not great amounts of lane setup. Maybe you can do something in a mid-jungle 2v2, but against a Wukong and Akali, that seems very, very dangerous, and the Nasa being self-sufficient too. I do feel like Razork has limited options. You're hoping that you can just support your lanes through to those 5v5s and hope that SK don't have any early game plans of themselves.
That's definitely the case, of course. If we get to those team fights, and with the way these drafts are working out, it looks like we may well get towards them at this point. The question then becomes whether Sivir with the Yuumi can outmatch a KogMaw and a Lulu. That is a hyper carry plus enchanter option. It's not Ardent Sentiment, but it feels a little bit not dissimilar.
No, it's like Fnatic, like, see Jezu and Treatz, so starting to charge the late game Spirit Bomb, and they go, but we can do that too. So
which one's Goku and which one's Vegeta?
I am not nearly prepared enough to really make a comparison there. Well, Fnatic have been the main character in this league so much, maybe they can find themselves back in the shoes of that one, but they have to take down SK to again keep themselves in contention, keep themselves keeping up with that pack. But both of these teams, if they lose today, are feeling in hot water.
Fnatic at 7th, 1 win outside of playoffs. SK a game behind them, their playoff stream still alive, but they need this win. I don't know how easy it'll be, I don't know what'll happen.
That's what we're going to see.
There's absolutely so much history between these teams. One of the oldest rivalries in European League of Legends is about to start. Onto the Rift we go for game 3 of the day. There we are on the Rift. And we'll kick it off with a very quick look at the standings as a reminder. 1 game apart. 1 game behind playoffs right now are Fnatic. SK, their dreams are still alive, but they want this win.
Yeah, and now I made a bold claim about SK after the break when they looked very, very good in week 6 coming back out of that break, and I thought they would actually even make Worlds. Now, that might have been a bit bold at this point. There might have been a bet put on the line.
What was that bet? Do you want to remind people?
Well, there might be an apology live on air at some point. Dressed as Star Guardian of our choice. It was a bet between me and Guldborg, but we'll see what can happen with this game.
I've got something for you as well. The HUD is allegedly working again. Means I've got some buttons to play with. So have a quick look in at those runes. Shiny they are.
They are. So, have the first strike onto Humanoid, onto that Azir. It's typically what we started to see. You'd tend to see that first strike on champions that do outrange and can very consistently proc that. That's kind of what we're seeing out of this champion, so expect to see Humanoid doing significant poke work as the game goes on, but nothing really out of the ordinary in this game.
Ooh, Fnatic, though, are trying to pull off what Vitality were in the last game. It's a level 1 rather than level 2 this time, as they're going to try and get Gilius off his wolves, who is going to only get a little one right now, as Upset Hylissang way away from the lane. Look at Jezu and Treatz, they're coming over. Will Gilius have to smite is the question, does now do so. Razork and, well, he's still going to be on this blue buff, and Jezu and Treatz were looking and see whether there was any support to be given, but just not going to happen, and early invade works out for Fnatic.
And at the end of the day, you know, you look at the KogMaw, the Lulu, they just had to fight better at that level 1, and Trundle certainly fights level 1 much better, one of the strongest level 1 champions in the game. SK not in position to respond to that. It sets Gilius behind, and Gilius has often been a very strong litmus test for SK. If he can't get rolling, it kind of follows up into the rest of SK as well. They kind of needed Gilius to deal the finishing blow in a number of their lanes. He plays through lanes very effectively, and him getting set behind early is not great signs for SK, but of course very well identified from Fnatic to put him behind.
Absolutely, and this is a matchup that used to be called El Clasico, and we kind of dropped that storyline a long time ago because SK kind of struggled for a while in Europe, but now they are in similar positions. We're being a little tongue-in-cheek, but have to bring it up, but this is a very relevant game to both teams here, and a long-time matchup was Wunder, chunked out very heavily by Gen X here early on.
You know, we've just decided to dust off this kind of title for today, see if Gilius can do anything towards this top zone, because it is really one of the first times that we've seen Fnatic and SK really be competing with each other on close enough to even footing for quite a while. Gilius and Razork not going to be competing on even like Trundle just wins this matchup so hard early on, especially with Wukong getting set behind just a little bit too. They were the same level, but Razork just forcing Gilius out. Gilius now down a flash. Potentially going to get double scuttled as well, particularly when you look at what's happening with these lanes. That's a push in, that's a push in. Even though Wukong can go towards that bot side, it's very dangerous for him to do so, especially without that flash. Fnatic stealing an early march on this game and getting the jungler ahead.
Yes, they are, and that's off some really nice coordinated early play from Fnatic. They do get into the jungle, you then do see that attempted counter from Gilius. It just doesn't really work out as well as they were hoping, and now put a long way behind, at least early on, and see whether Razork, despite what we're saying, maybe doesn't have the easiest options in lane to gank for, but is making Wukong's life difficult instead.
Yeah, and one thing which I was worried for with Fnatic's draft was actually, I look at each of these lanes and I thought, well, Razork doesn't really have options to gank. He's going to be in a point where he's, you know, not really going to be able to get kills in lanes, but I mean, he very quickly identifies, well, I don't need to do that. I just need to make a mess of the Wukong, and then my lanes have to be self-sufficient after that point. It very much helps them do that. And now, with the Wukong very unable to enter those lanes, it has allowed Fnatic a decent amount of ability to play through their lanes, slight advantages in that mid and bot lane, and they are such high scaling damage carries. That does seem like a real big win for Fnatic for me.
Does indeed for now, and honestly, the desk was talking about it, right? Like, are we going to see more bot side focus for Fnatic? They've drafted an Ornn top for full weak side, and then they've got hyper carries in mid and bot lane. Like, this is what you need. It's not necessarily lane dominance, but it's certainly bot focus.
What's kind of hilarious for me about Fnatic is that, are they going to focus top side? Are they going to focus bot side? The answer is apparently neither.
Sort of, yeah.
Like, in some ways, yes, in terms of the damage that they're drafting, but they are not actually necessarily ganking through Razork. Razork has just decided it's about individual jungle advantage and just making sure that SK don't have options themselves. There's a different way to approach the jungle matchup this game.
And I appreciate that nuance, right? Because what we're saying, look, there is definitely bot side interest and focus. It's not quite the same in terms of how the jungle's playing out at Sertuss. Level 5, looking to see whether there's an empowered auto to be used there. But really, the Akali gets the kill threat at level 6. That's when the real matchup can become a bit more of a counter.
And of course, used that very, very well versus G2. Called that one out earlier. But SK, with a draft which felt like potentially the Wukong could get something done a little earlier. We'll need to look in towards the first fights of the game. A little bit farther behind than he would like to be. He's a level down. We've already talked about that enough, and we're going to keep talking about that because I think it's really important to see, actually, SK, if you slide into a mid-game and don't find anything, if you're dealing against these backline carries which are such high damage, you're not really going to be on even footing. I would like to see SK get themselves a lead somehow, some way. Question is, what's the angle for it for them? Is it going to be around something like a First Dragon? Is it going to be around your level 6s? Or around a Herald or something like that? Either way, you need to get something. Otherwise, Fnatic are going to be sliding into those team fights with a lot of damage to bear. They're going to walk into the Dragon Pit, though, right now, and look to start this one up nice and early. Of course, Trundle, one of the better ones at doing this early on in the game. Yeah. And you know, we're talking about the damage. So, Fatal Dragon, just like all the other dragons, one of the hallmarks of 12-14, does more for you now. It used to be 4% bonus attack damage and ability power. It's gone up to 6%. That's matching what it used to be in some previous seasons. Of course, that number's been pushed around a little bit, but that is mighty nice for Fnatic, and that damage just going to have that extra amount of sting on it now.
See what they can get done with, of course. There's still some more dragons to go. Mountain Drake second, and it is that early stacking that can often be so deadly in these games. You can get to the early salt, especially now with how potent those drakes are. A lot of dragons versus none really hurts at this point.
Razork's looking. There is a flash and a ghost on Jezu. And of course, Treatz gets to go with him, but how much can they achieve here?
Gonna have a spell shield available, but just so much damage. Finally had to flash, but Treatz. Bit of damage on the back end of that, but not going to be interrupted. Wing back to the Sivir. Summoners blown, though, by SK, and that is alarm bells ringing for the red side team.
It's 3 summoners, and it is now Fnatic able to push in, stop Jezu and Treatz from really having pressure on this bot side. Not that they would have had much to play around. Of course, Sivir and Yuumi really waiting for their own item spikes themselves. Now, Upset and Hilly, I'm actually interested in seeing what they will do with this wave, because they're looking to slow push it in. I'm really interested in seeing what they want to do with this, because what they can do, because the Herald spawn is coming back up, they can pin SK's bot lane and potentially force Gilius to respond on bot side because of this huge wave, while they get themselves a Herald for free. I want to see what they do with this wave, outside of just crashing it.
Still going to step forwards and Upset with his puppy skin on, trying to slobber all over Jezu. What a disgusting looking. You've got to realize those VFX are actually remarkably grim the more you think about them.
Sam, they are not worse than actual KogMaw, who he vomits at you. How is it? How is that worse?
You may have a point.
There are some serious priorities different here.
KogMaw in general is perhaps a little grim, but there we go. Either way, they are going to start at the early Herald. Early Dragon goes over. Razork using this lane priority to get onto that Herald as well, as I swiftly change the topic.
Well, it's kind of what we thought. Fnatic having control of lanes, having control of those ways. So Gilius is in the area, has that level 6, and of course that Cyclone, very, very important in these more than just 1v1 fights. Gilius still in the area, though. How much support has he really got here?
Not maybe as much as he was hoping, as Subjugate's been popped, but the Call of the Forge Core now coming through. Wunder gets a knock-up onto Gilius, who's ignited, now flashing away. Flash forward from Wunder, who really wants this, but now the turnaround. Not bad with the Cyclone, but a first blood from Hylissang, aggressively flashing forward for it. But all the while, Sertuss into the backside, exhausted.
Good exhaust.
Can't quite perfect. Yezu doesn't get it with the 5-point strike either. He's back into the Shroud, but I don't know whether it's going to be enough. Trying, but not enough. Gnar into the wall from Genax, but cannot secure it. SK are thwarted at every turn. 3-0 to Fnatic.
And you know what I'm going to say here? Support diff. Hilly turns up early. We called this out. Fnatic had themselves the bot side control, got to crash that wave in. They got first reset, and Hylissang turns up first. Treatz is not there for the fight, and that means that that shield is not answered for in kind on SK. There is no extra ability to have this staying power. Fnatic are in a much better position to take this fight, and SK, they commit at a numbers disadvantage. Look at this. Hilly's here first. You can look on the minimap. I mean, Yuumi's just walking out of base. SK feels like they commit because they feel like they have to, and that's the real doom of them. They really didn't have the tools to work through this. And what a wonderful exhaust. Again, just Hylissang really turning up and being the difference maker, and for a player that was so strong in spring but struggled to find form in summer. It's a good look from him. Potentially very important for Fnatic, as again, this is a very important game for Fnatic. They win this, and again, they are starting to keep up with the rest of the pack. I'm going to say that phrase quite a lot today because the pack is just so close. But Fnatic are a win behind a number of the teams that started off on 7 wins today. Even a win today is not enough to keep them safe.
No, it is not. And a reminder, Fnatic in 19 seasons have made 19 playoffs and got 7 titles. They have yet to miss a playoffs.
That is a lot of big numbers.
It is.
This is, you know, one of the real titans of Europe. If you've heard of European League Legends, you have almost certainly heard of Fnatic. And now they are in threat of not even making it through to the postseason in summer. This game found themselves on good footing, and this is a good sign for them. We had a lot of questions about them, had a lot of questions about how they were going to go forward from this point. Of course, the journey does not end here. A number of games left for them, ending with this one. But at least for Fnatic, if they find themselves a return to form, they can kind of stomp their foot and say, yeah, you know, we get to face all of our competition and shunt someone out and get our own playoff spot.
Yeah, they had that very lengthy loss streak of 5, which is something that hadn't happened in something like 8 years, if I remember correctly.
Since
and now,
2014.
Yeah, so obviously they broke that against BDS, but the questions remained. Could they do it against teams that were a little stronger, perhaps, than BDS? They've got a schedule coming up of basically all their direct rivals who are vying for those playoff spots. Now is the time to put up or shut up if you want to continue your undefeated playoff appearance run.
Yeah, it means that it's just not in question, right? Like, you can very obviously just say, you know, we have proved ourselves at this point. There is no asterisk on top of that, but let's get through this game first in a healthy advantage so far. They're going to start themselves up that second dragon. It's Mountain Dragon. These are, of course, the Infernal and the Mountain, some of the better individual value, so Fnatic going to have that value under pocket as well. And now, we asked the question a little earlier. SK, we want to see them get some early leads, get to that point where they can get a bit further ahead, and they just haven't done that. Fnatic very quickly stomped out Gilius' impact on the game, and now this Wukong is sat there, still behind in farm, still behind a level, and SK have really struggled to stop Fnatic very smoothly, very calmly, getting to a point where their team fight is going to be so disgusting later into the game.
You see just advantages really across the board.
Oh, that is
right,
not the two members you want to see with the most.
Yeah, that is the Azir and the KogMaw up ahead in gold. Alarm bells ringing right now as the Santander total gold comes up. We can see exactly how it's working as Razork gets ahead now of even the mid laner of SK.
Oh,
briefly.
It's and you know, when you lock in something like a Sivir Yuumi, you're sat there going, you know, we're gonna have damage, don't worry, teamfight's gonna be great at some point. We're scaling, boys. But this is not the game where that is going to be easy. Herald gonna give even more gold into Upset, was already fairly affluent before that point, gets themselves to over 1,000 gold ahead of their opposing number at this point. And SK, questions have to keep being asked. You haven't found a proactive play yet. The Herald fight was miscalculated, not really in the position they wanted to, and it's only going to get harder from here.
Now, of course, if they can get to a couple items, they've got some damage, some scaling to their own name as well. If you can get to the point where Yuumi does work, then fine, things can potentially turn around, but you're facing down a double dragon stack early on. You're facing down a team that scales on a similar parity to you, and this is a very scary position to be in.
And even just then, right, Gilius is looking for something topside, but Wunder has the spellbook on the Ornn and just pops the ghost and Scooby-Doo's his way out that topside. Very safe.
Split up and look for kills.
Well, I mean, if you look at Fnatic's comp, we'd rather face them one at a time than not. That'd be kind of convenient.
It would be, yeah. Like, Gilius would really like that to happen. But as last, this is League of Legends, not Scooby-Doo. And right now, we're kind of in this waiting period as the next Dragon's coming up in Upset, and the rest of Fnatic are very happy to just sit here, get to a couple items.
Wait, sorry. If Upset is playing like KogMaw, he's obviously Scooby. Who is Shaggy?
It has to be Hylissang, because they're the double. They are the duo lane.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, welcome to the Mystery Machine. We'll see where this one takes us.
What wild ride are we taking the audience on?
I have no idea. Join us for more. Right, well, either way, got ourselves a lane swap, seeing that a little bit. Jezu has themselves that Sivir ultimate, but isn't going to be committing towards that top side, and Razork is there to answer Gilius. And I do really, again, want to zoom out, just say that Fnatic have, while they haven't had the best ganking options, because that's just not what their draft does, right? Yeah. It's not going to hyper gank lanes. It has been doing really, really well at nullifying what SK wants to do in the early game. I think this has been actually quite an impressive performance from Fnatic to keep their carries safe, keep them around there, and we have ourselves a pause.
Oh, well, the pause comes through. When we figure out what it is, we'll find out soon enough and tell you, but we are now just waiting to see how this one gets resolved. Quick flick over to all the players who are sitting and waiting to get back into game as well.
They obviously heard our thrilling content.
They went, we've got to get more of this. Exactly.
Ooh.
Is this free? It's not quite free license to podcast quite yet. Let's check in maybe a little bit with where the game is at, because obviously, Fnatic very happy where the game is right now, but for SK, what do they need to do to try and stabilize and come into a mid game where their comp still has some options?
It's really difficult to say, right? Because I actually feel like they were looking for the right things, something like picking off an Ornn in that side lane with your Gnar and your Wukong into killing their tower. That can open up a bit of the map. It allows your Gnar to take over the side lane. And Genax is a player that has played a number of Gnar games at this point. It's been fairly successful for it. I actually think that Genax has been fairly core to a lot of SK's success. Outside of, we kind of called Gilius the litmus test, but with Fnatic playing well on a defensive level too, not actually having Humanoid die to a lot of roams coming in. He struggled a little bit with that in Summer. Not having Wunder getting dove by quite a potent top jungle duo, it's hard to enable that kind of play pattern, because at this point, I think it's fair to say, Fnatic's show up and it's 5v5. There's just a beach ball being thrown around the place. Yeah.
The crowd's making its own fun right now while the pause is on. They are having fun. Beach, but it feels, more and more like a festival here every week, I swear. Just the summer heat's hitting all of us as we're actually back onto the Rift very swiftly.
The beach ball demands we play on.
Exactly that. And, SK have got themselves some playmaking options, but they've got to deal with the Lulu, the exhaust, everything else as the beach ball is making myself very entertained. It's going...
What is happening here?
Who knows? Madness. Madness, I tell you. All the while, though, we are still a minute and a half off soul point for Fnatic. We're still obviously in a position where SK can still potentially play this one out, if they can get the kills onto the Akali, get the Sivir to a point where she's got items and can maraude through the enemy with all those ricochets.
I think the crowd's been able to hit that ball more than Gilius has been able to hit enemy champions this game.
Ow!
No, I'm not saying it's his fault.
No, exactly. Fnatic have made his life incredibly difficult.
There is a distinction. He's just had a very hard time of it. But and that is going to be increasingly difficult for SK, because now if you lose the second Herald, which is looking increasingly likely, again, if you're going towards these big team fights, you're not really going to be that happy about it. Chances are you're going to lose yourself something like a mid lane outer turret. That means that it's much harder to approach these fights. SK,
beginning.
Such an important fight for them.
Teleport is there. They're going to try and secure it. It's now gone through onto the Trundle. The root come through, but no real kills come through. Flash forward from Razork with the jump onto Jezu, who's having to run away. The Sivir is out, but one on the other side. Janus gets a stun, but cannot get a kill. Sertuss exhausted, but shoved away with that massive Emperor's Divide. Back to Fnatic, and there is just nothing SK can do. It is a demolition at double Rift Herald fights.
Oh, the Herald times out. The two focus on the kills, but you know what? Kill enough people, they're probably going to take that tower anyway. Fnatic, they bait SK in with this threat of the objective being taken. We knew it was going to be dangerous for SK. They commit, they show up, and they are put in the dirt. Fnatic really haven't given SK options. Felt after that level 1, after Gilius was shut so firmly out of the game early on, Fnatic have been breezing through into what is now a very powerful mid game. Strong gold advantage, neutrals in their favor. SK, they do have some objective bonus to pick up if they can get it, but they're such a long way behind now, and they really wanted to be ahead. Failed to do that. Fnatic sitting comfy.
I think at this point it might be worth just checking in with a player who we've had some questions about this split. Honestly, Humanoid and the Azir has had now a much better game recently to get them this team, this squad, back into a better position in the split. As the Dragon's being started, in fact, by SK, so maybe we'll wait for that one a little moment.
He has himself items. A crown makes it much harder to burst him out at the start of the fight. What can SK do against these carries which are coming online?
Gilius has to back out again. He's on 20% HP, being subjugated already. Genax hops away, but I don't know whether the Emperor's going to allow him to go any further. The Blast Cone gets him out to safety for now, but a command attack and a shuffle will ensure that Humanoid gets a kill onto Genax.
The Sands shift, the Sands take down at Genax. Gilius left alone, and Hilly feeling bloodthirsty.
Bloodthirsty supports, you love to see it. Wunder on a killing spree, but let's be real, that's Hylissang with all the work.
Yeah, bringing back some good old supportal combat. Fnatic get that soul point up onto that Ocean Rift, going to in such a dominating position. And again, this was why we were so worried about SK not getting advantages, because if you get it to that point, it feels like it's such a hard job getting to those carries, and you're out-damaged by them at that same point. You really were hoping for something to get working for you early. It's not happened. Fnatic showing no mercy. They're trying again.
They're going to make an angle in, but they overcomes Wunder with the call of the forward court. Sertuss knocked up, trying to go down. Hylissang's got a wild growth against alive. The living artillery secures a kill, and the artillery continues to rain down hell from range. But the kill comes through, and SK throw a Hail Mary, and it comes up with nothing.
And they don't even need Humanoid there. Humanoid safely pushing on the other side of the map. How bad does it feel to be Sertuss in that point? Sat in the Shroud, looking for that perfect execution, part 2, trying to get something in there. Can't even finish off Lulu. Hylissang saw him around that first Herald fight, really praised him for that, just being an absolute nuisance in these fights at this point. SK, again, whenever they commit to those grouped up confrontations, have been thoroughly beat.
Completely true. Of course, got to remind ourselves, game's not over, of course, but I think Fnatic are pretty much there. They're 9,000 gold up. They are managing to turn around a lot of the woes we saw, even like just close as last week, right? BDS was the first win they'd gotten in a while. And they are now in a position where they can start making that push into players, making that push to compete further on as Jenax.
Wait,
his Alcove gamed his way out of this.
Alcove Gaming.
Humanoid will be spotted!
No!
The recall is cancelled!
Oh, Jenax, no!
Alas, sweet Jenax, we knew thee well.
I am really sad. I thought that would have been a great escape. But of
He
course,
was so close.
It's hard to pull off the SOAS against the team which made SOAS famous.
Yeah, he didn't even teleport, so it's not even a true SOAS.
I think SOAS made himself famous, but he was also on Fnatic, so...
And now the item discrepancies are well and truly in as well. It's 2 items completed, and SK tried to fight with that discrepancy where the second item hadn't completed. They don't get it work. Now they are losing all of the map. They're already down to Soul Point, and SK are really waiting on a huge misplay from Fnatic to try and get back into this, and maybe a miracle flank.
And, you know, we kind of called up a little earlier, the split up and look for kills. How do you do that? How do you do that? Because, I mean, at this point, you are not picking off a Azir with a crown in inventory, multiple items. He is so high level as well. You're probably not going to pick up anyone that the Lulu sat around as well. And now Fnatic is sat here with quite a mobile Azir. Once you get to that level 13, you've kind of you know, got yourself a lot of Q cooldown, so you get yourself the ability to kind of WEQ out, just shift away, and you can probably see that right now. I mean, Humanoid is so safe on that side lane. Fnatic really don't need to be worried about a lot of these fights.
Quick note as Jenax and Wunder trade out here. We are on track here for a perfect game from Fnatic. The last true perfect game was in spring of 2018.
That. No,
as
don't
Wunder,
say that.
the moment might have just cursed him.
No.
Can he get out the perfect game? Wizard about to be ruined.
Why would you
Shut
say
down.
that?
I have thrown Wunder under the caster curse of all caster curse buses.
Berlin, I would like to request a boo for the caster.
I'm
that
sorry.
Was a perfect game.
I'm sorry. It's my fault.
There we go. Love you, really. But also, that was really
I deserve
bad.
that. I deserve that. I'm sorry, Fnatic. See, okay, bit of recovery. We'll take it.
There we go. Play nice as well. Gilius, stuck between the pillar and the wall. Oh, gosh. I mean, you know what? I'm pretty sure Fnatic won't feel much worse about that. Still so much in the lead.
Well, SK managed to at least prevent the perfect game. The record still lands. It's been 4 years at this point. He's going to have to wait a little longer as Upset decides he's a bit angry about that and just murders the monkey.
Goes down, and Gilius has just had basically no way into these fights. This game, again, we've kind of talked about it enough. It was really about whether SK could find something in the early game. I thought that with the lanes which Fnatic had, there were some openings, but SK, they just never get rolling. Fnatic, very confident game for them, very decisive, and this has been a game which has been much more cohesive from Fnatic than we've seen in quite a while. So for them, it's a bit of a late recovery into this split. Again, they need to pick up some wins, but no time better than to start now.
Baron comes through, 20 seconds on Ocean Soul. The perfect game might be dropped, but this game certainly hasn't. They are so in command of this game, it would take, well, perhaps more than one miracle for SK to even have a chance of coming back in at this point.
So, really grasping at straws here, and yeah, it really just feels like SK continually.
Avert your eyes, this is going to be harsh. Ooh.
Oh, God. Ow. I mean, this is the real mid lane experience. We're like, hey, wow, I'm gonna dive in. Guys, I've got our first kill, awesome! Then you realize that the enemy jungler's actually got more damage and more gold than you. Again, SK would have been difficult at even. They are so far behind at this point. They're not even testing themselves. This dragon, they're gonna get themselves an objective bounty on the top side of the map, but it is such a consolation prize. It kind of just feels so flimsy to this team.
That gold is even larger than you remember because, of course, those improved dragons on this patch, 4 of them to none. Soul to nothing on the other side. Still a Red Bull Baron power play to go through as well. 2 minutes left on that. Fnatic can really turn the screws and choke the remaining life out of SK.
And what a sad story for SK, because in spring they were obviously 2-7 in the first round robin. They ended up recovering to a respectable finish. They ended up taking games off of a lot of our top teams in the LEC in that split. But now we thought we could see the same from them. They improved by 1 in the first round robin. They went, 3-6, and it was like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe they can do something with this. And they've not really managed to keep up that innovation, that momentum.
Oh, upset. The Bio Arcane Barrage of the Living Artillery takes Gilius down to 10% HP. Gen X has to recall as this KogMaw just unleashes on the enemy jungler.
That's gonna be such a difficult position to be in. What can they do? Can they break this team?
24.5 minutes on the clock, and Fnatic are done waiting. They want this game right now. They want it right here, and SK, the playoff stream is looking like a bit of a wish and nothing more as Fnatic prove why they have made playoffs so many times throughout the years. They're on track. The recovery continues. 2 in a row for the boys in orange.
Fnatic starting to show signs of life again. Broke that lost streak, put a second one into that win streak now. Would have loved that to happen so much earlier in the split, but they might have to work for it. But they are looking a lot more cohesive, as we were saying. There are things to start grasping onto here if you are a Fnatic fan.
Absolutely, and we just brought up SK and Fnatic close in the standings. SK could maybe push for playoffs and get in here, and Fnatic just dismantled them. Literally off another early invade, the game just falls apart for the other team.
And it was so close to that perfect game. If only. If only words were said.
I see that I am going to be blamed for this, and I will apologize profusely. It is my fault.
As your brother to occasionally keep you accountable in that manner. But again, a really impressive game. Sad story for SK at this point too. They looked like they were so far ahead of the meta coming out of that break after getting that new amount of momentum. But Fnatic's such a good team on the day. It's been a while since we could say that in summer, but confidently put.
They do, and it's a KogMaw Lulu comp. It's a different look for Fnatic. They win across the board, it feels like. Razork gets to be aggressive against the enemy jungler. Lanes do really well. That was just a very clean game, and I still think there are questions about whether Fnatic can continue this and whether some of those changes in the meta can hurt them. But they seem to, at least in this game, have had a pretty comfortable and confident way of how they wanted to play out in this meta.
And this is a very different team comp to the one that we have seen globally. This wasn't like a hyper-aggressive, let's gank bot, let's dive. We've seen that a little bit with your Dravens and your Kallistas, which have been largely the bot lane meta. This wasn't I'm putting resources into one side of the map. It was I'm stabilizing the map, and then the carries will do something later. And actually, Fnatic made it work very, very effectively. So this could be a different flavor of team within EU. Not really seeing that elsewhere.
Speaking of flavors, you've got 3 to work with, people. Go to @LEC on Twitter and vote for the key player of the game. Wunder, Humanoid, and Hylissang are your options this time around.
I'm trying to think who I'd vote for. I think it's Hylissang.
I really enjoyed his Lulu play in fairness.
It's been a while since we've really managed to gush about how good a player Hylissang is, but that Herald fight, really good rotations, being so annoying in the late game fights. Sometimes it is a little hard to praise some enchanters because a lot of what they do is unseen. That one was a much more visible Lulu game. I think I would give my vote there.
I can also see the argument for Humanoid, of course, who had a lot of those individual advantages.
Did a lot of damage.
Problem with Wunder, he was the one that died. It's my fault, but he did it. So I'm sorry, Wunder, I've cost you that. That's my fault.
That's wonderful. That's great. I love that. I love that so much.
And of course, that does move Fnatic close towards those players. It gets them a little bit closer to tie up with some of those teams that are at those 7 wins. And with playoffs and so tight, only a couple wins between them, a very necessary win for them. But now it is time to toss to an interview with the coach of Fnatic, Yamato standing by with Laure. See you in a few.
Thank you, guys. And Yamato, thank you so much for joining me for this interview. It's been a while since we had a chat. How are you feeling?
Right now, pretty good.
Yeah?
Pretty good. It was a good game. I think we showed what we are capable of, and, it feels good for the moment, but we continue.
Before focusing on the future and what's been going wrong lately for Fnatic, I need to ask about this season because it is fair to say, I think, that you haven't played to the expectations. How do you reflect on this season and the struggles for the team as a whole?
I think on our end, we struggled to adapt appropriately between the patches. I think the split in particular, there was a lot of changes in between, and I think best of ones reward commitment to the correct direction from the get-go, because you only get to play one game on the day. You need to make sure that you use your 20 games of scrims to prepare your identity, so to speak. And I think we had an issue with just spreading ourselves very thin. We were kind of trying to play everything, and we ended up not being able to play anything at all on some days. And I think this is where we found new focus.
And I think it's interesting because you said that you also tried. When you look at Fnatic and the way they play, we were used to a team playing mostly towards the bot lane. You put an emphasis on top lane also, getting Razork to play more around Wunder. But I'm just wondering, when, let's say that the team didn't have a solid enough foundation, what do you take of the risk of playing differently in the sense that you needed to bridge the team together?
I think it just starts from finding the draft direction that fits everyone's strengths. I think it's important to realize that enemies also have certain strengths and weaknesses that we can cater to, and us as players, like the players within this current dynamic, have strengths and weaknesses too. They might have different identities in different teams, but always when you're playing with a new group of players, you need to kind of reinvent yourself in a way that works within the group. And I think that has been like the biggest challenge for us. I think at certain times we were pulling in many directions and putting energy into different things at different times. And I think the most important thing is that you're focused on the same thing and you pour your efforts into the same direction. And then you finally get to see what players are capable of.
Now, looking for happier days like the victory we saw today, what is the identity for Fnatic, or what would you like it to be?
I think on my end, it's plain and simple, finding the most effective strategy that will rack up the victories. Other than that, I don't want to reveal too many details. I think the opposition just needs to look at our games. Sadly, it's only best of one, so they can look at one game and try to decipher it. That's the fun part about best of one, so good luck to them. I will not reveal anything additionally.
All right, well, focusing more on this game, last question for you. Hylissang got the Kia player of the game today. Any take on his season, but also his game today?
You said Hylissang, yeah?
Hylissang, yeah, correct.
Hylissang, yeah, he's showing up with the Lulu.
Scientist.
I think the last time he played Lulu, I remember he was playing against Sivir Brom, Mickey Reckless last year in playoffs. It was a good one. I think Hilly can be very surprising to people. I think he has a lot of depth, and I'm happy that he got the MVP today, because he's not just that person that will find the crazy engages. He is very smart about many things within the game, and today he showed up for Lulu. Maybe tomorrow he'll show something else. Sadly, Hextech Flash is disabled, so, you know, that's his magic button.
Hilly Baba and his mysteries. Yamato, thank you so much
for
the interview. Good luck on Match of the Week, also
Appreciate it. Thank
tomorrow.
you.
And as we head to break, make sure to listen to the Warner Song of the Week, Not Over Yet by KSI on the official LEC Spotify playlist. Rogue versus Mad will be after this. Stay tuned.
We are like now top team of the LEC, so we have to show to everyone how is the best team of Europe.
We kind of have the tools to win. Everyone individually kind of mature in terms of, you know, their role in communication. I feel like then everyone's a bit more optimistic and has a bit more trust in our picks and each other.
Boy still standing, Larson stunned. He knocks him back. We wanted to know how they would get into range, and Larson delivers them. Comp with a massive triple.
I think right now we are maybe in the best shape, but we have so many mistakes and we still have so much to improve on that. Yeah, it feels still frustrating to be the best, but not at the highest level, you know.
Unforgiven is about to get knocked up. He does indeed. Moonlight Vigil comes forward, and there's the flash. Unforgiven turning so much damage. He gets the kill inside the pit. Channel on Hex. Can he steal it? He does. Rogue do it. Malrang gets the Baron.
Continues. Jezu being chunked out by Laure. Who flash jumped. You don't beat the Troll King. Mad Lions mid jungle comes to play.